Hi, this is Zach Drake from CanExcel, and welcome to another episode of Trainer Spotlight, where we connect with top professionals in the soccer industry to uncover tips, tactics, and tricks to help you build a thriving soccer business and support the next generation of players. Today, I'm excited to be joined by a former teammate while playing at the pro level. He's someone who was always a beast during games, in training, and in the gym. And now he's pouring the same work ethic into his own facility, Portugal Sports Academy, where he's developing athletes and raising the standard in Las Vegas. Let's get into it with Julian. How's it going, Julian?
Hey, thank you, Zach. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Now, before we get into all the training talk, I gotta ask, we didn't actually hang out as much as I would have liked when we were playing on the same team and back in the Las Vegas Lights days, but is there a random Zach Drake memory that stands out? Like anything weird I said or did at training or in the locker room?
No, you like to flex a lot without a shirt. I remember that. So when we were introducing the uniforms, you love being that guy that when we were the first thing we announced in the uniform was the shorts? Only shorts. And was it like you and like 5 to 6 other players got the opportunity to go and show the shorts off at a hotel pool, and you were living that moment. So that's something we kind of made fun of. I was like, just put Zach. He likes being that guy.
Yeah, you got me with that. I worked so hard on those abs, and when they were like, oh yeah, you get to show them off, I'm like, this is my opportunity.
But no, I mean, I knew you were a hard worker. Always kind of kept to yourself, never complained, especially, I don't want to go into how the roller coaster of a season that was on and off the field, but just remember the hard worker that showed up on time, did his thing, and that's the memory of you.
Nice, I appreciate it. And real quick, what was it like playing in front of 10,000 fans at home?
For me, it was special because, I was born and raised in Mexico, but I didn't play soccer in Mexico. I actually started playing soccer when I moved to Vegas. So I started at the rec level, played at the club level, played at the collegiate level with UNLV, and then getting the opportunity to play at the pro level in front of everyone is kind of to see how Vegas soccer has changed so much. Now there's an opportunity to play professional soccer. So it was supposed to me amazing because now some people have seen my growth from the rec all the way to a pro level.
That's amazing. We'll transition straight into your training journey. When did you first start training players privately, and how did those early sessions look like?
Yeah, so actually it happened after my first year playing USL with the Tulsa Roughnecks. It was back in 2015, close to 2016. The season didn't go well for me, and I left the team early. I left the Tulsa Roughnecks early. So I started I came back home to Vegas, and honestly, that was the first time in my life, and I think in a 2-month period where I wasn't in a locker room, I wasn't in training sessions, I wasn't in a team environment, and I didn't want to get a job. I was still looking for options for next year, but obviously I need a little bit of cash. So I actually started training some kids at a local club here. And then little by little, they started requesting, hey, do you do privates? Do you do anything outside the club environment? And I was like, not really, but we can. And I was like, I have Sundays available. So there's a park right here behind the hospital. It's called Crossings Park, and honestly, I started using parents that had equipment. So I didn't have any equipment. I was using other people's stuff at first. And that's how I started. I started at a park, and then I found myself actually writing down the lesson plans and all this stuff. And I was like, dang, I actually enjoy doing this. I knew I wanted to coach after playing. I just didn't think it was going to happen this soon. And slowly and truly, my first session, I remember I had 4 kids. Next Sunday, it grew to 6. And then little by little, it grew to a point where on Sundays, I was having sessions from 8 a.m. all the way to 3 p.m. So it just blew up from there with word of mouth. Obviously, back in the day with Instagram, it was the videos. I think they were only allowed 10 seconds, 15 seconds. So I bought my little first GoPro. I think it was the GoPro 3. And then started promoting myself little by little like that. Obviously, I had no idea about the hashtags and all that. But yeah, that's how I started. Started at a park. Got to a point where parents actually started requesting sessions during the weekdays instead of Sundays. And I would drive to different parts of town, the north side, Henderson, the west side. And, just trying to, get to people, trying to get my training out there. And I, like I said, I found myself really enjoying it, and especially seeing some kids, how slowly they were starting to get better. And out of nowhere, I was like, I'm kind of tired of driving. And what if I asked my parents if I can use their garage as a training facility? I have a 3-car garage. So that's where my first facility was. It was in my parents' garage. Nice. My dad and me built this wooden wall so the kids can strike the ball against it, work on their touches. I bought 1 squat rack. What else? I had a treadmill that didn't work, but we use it as kind of like sleds, because if you run on a dead treadmill, it was mimicking a sled push. So that's how I started, and that was my first facility in my parents' garage. Created enough momentum, and then one gym called Phase 1 Sports, it's a good brand here. It's mainly known for training football players and basketball players. They wanted to grow a soccer program there, and hey, we see that you have good stuff. What if you move your brand to us and you run our brand, Phase 1 Soccer? And I don't know if you went to that facility, but I was working there currently when I was working there during the time when I met you when we were on the lights. Then I was, and so 2015, 2016, kind of keep growing. I was coaching in college soccer too with CSN, which is a little JUCO here. So I was just trying to wet my feet as much as I can into the coaching and training world. Then the news of the lights coming came to Vegas, and I was like, you know what? I wasn't trying to pursue a pro career anymore. I was, I think, 26 at the time. And I was like, I'm going to train my butt off and then sell my training to people like, hey, I know what I'm doing. Look at me. I trained, he recorded, basically documented everything I did to get a pro contract here on the Las Vegas Lights. And I started as well. So it was like a little push of marketing thing. I tortured myself to get ready for that because I was inactive for 2 years. It worked out. And then, I left the team early with the Lights to basically blow up what I was already kind of had before I joined the Lights. And then with phase after the Lights, a couple months later, I grew so much out of phase 1 that I decided to get up my own warehouse, and Portugal Sports Academy came to life.
Wow, I love it. I mean, it speaks to the Julian work ethic I know, but to have an actual background of how things all came about with your training and how you just built, and it was the grind. There's no shortcut to success in being a player, but also in business. And clearly you started that out from humble beginnings. I love that you didn't even have your own equipment. I can resonate with that because when I started, I first went out and bought a ball from I think Walmart, like a size 4 or 3 to train a 6-year-old. And that was my first beginnings, and then have grown it to using the top level cutting edge technology and tools like skills. I love using skills in my training. I got my little skills man in the back, if you could see.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
But yeah, I'm going to pick into a couple of these different areas later on, but really great overview so far. One thing I wanted to follow up on was, what was that moment you realized that you really wanted to do this full time?
I think it was actually at the very beginning of the park sessions when, I would go watch these kids and actually apply what I was teaching them. They were applied to the game. And the text I got, it made me feel good. Like, you're doing good for my kid. And at the end of the day, I kind of became a little bit of mentor to some of them at an early stage at the parks. And then it kind of gave me a flashback of my club soccer experience. I was on a very good Hispanic team. We weren't affiliated with any big club. But the problem was that, coming from basically a majority Hispanic, background with parents, the parents on our teams didn't know anything about going to college or what was the next step after we were going to be 18. For the parents for the ones that we were more competitive, we actually, some of my teammates and me actually ended up going and playing in Mexico in different places. And then obviously all of us actually came back because it didn't work out. And I noticed that we were the better team for the longest time here, and most of us didn't end up doing anything after we were 18. I was lucky enough that I was kind of persistent, and I found, and thankful to the UNLV coaching staff, they were able to say, we're trying to get you to UNLV, this is what you need to do. But my other teammates weren't so lucky. And I think that mentorship of because some kids have, parents that are on them, ACTs, hey, this is what you got to do to go to college and stuff. My teammates, we didn't have that. Most of our parents worked 2 jobs, so we rarely saw our parents. And the times we did see them was when they would take us to practice. And we also had siblings, so there was none of that mentorship of you can use soccer to get an education also. And that's where my switch kind of flipped. I was like, I need to use this to make sure. I wasn't going to favor the Hispanic community, but I need to make sure tell kids that they can use this ball as a tool to get on in life and join experiences that, other people can't have. And all you got to do is work, train, work, and just watch it, go to school. Now with MLS academies, leave Vegas. And that's one of my goals for my younger boys is get the hell out of Vegas, go to them, and the ones that actually have the talent. And I can see that they're being mature enough to actually get out of Vegas and, live with a host family or in dorms that can get out of Vegas. So ultimately where it clicked to me was when I was actually making a difference, when I was getting some of these kids, I was something that I didn't have, because unfortunately, no blame on my parents or the coaches I had at the time, because my parents have been fantastic. The coach I had at the time was fantastic. They just didn't know about the system that was here in the United States.
Yeah. I love that. And for a lot of these players, I guess it just really resonates with me because growing up, I didn't have the pathways as well or the financial support, and soccer was that escape for me. I was able to get a full scholarship to the US as well. And it really can be a tool, not just for, financial success, but even just a tool for developing as a person. You can learn so much through soccer, through sport. And then when you have a mentor like yourself, actually teaching them, they might develop life lessons that you might not even know how much you're influencing them at that young age. And
Absolutely.
as adults, they could be a completely different, better version of themselves thanks to what you're doing with your coaching. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you did some training at a soccer field near a hospital. When you started out your training sessions, did you ever transition from, going on fields for free, not paying for them, to actually booking the fields for your sessions as well? How did that work out for you? Because I know a lot of these, starting out trainers, you're hopping a lot of fences, getting your training sessions in, and you might have to be, you might get kicked off of the pitch every now and again. Did you ever experience that?
Yeah. I mean, I think every trainer kind of experienced that. So luckily that field was open. It was kind of like a first come, first serve. The only time we really got kicked out was when they were doing some kind of treatment on the grass, because thankfully it was grass. But I built enough relationship with actually the landscaping crew where I'll bring them food. So I'll bring them, So obviously speaking Spanish to them a little bit, I was like, hey guys, like just give me 2 hours, 3 hours, and I promise. And they were cool with it. I've had situations at other parks too where I just have to build that friendship. I was like, look, hey, just let me know. I got 100 here. I'll slide to you. It's like that. And I see a lot of trainers sometimes think like, oh, all the money they get, they start spending it. No, but some of that money sometimes you got to use to kind of like bribe the people that are in control of that field. So that's why I would say in the beginnings, all the money I had, I would save it sometimes, and I would actually have some. I put an envelope, like a bribe envelope, and in case I need to, hey, look, I'll give you $50 if you just give me 2 hours to knock out these 8 kids. So now, luckily, it didn't happen much, but sometimes I did have to pull up that envelope and say, hey, look, come on. I know you're bossing out here and you're the one responsible for the field, so just please let me have these 2 hours with the field. And they were cool about it. They're like, all right, good. It looked like we're going on lunch break early.
I love that. That's so cool. Yeah, great tip. Transitioning to building that facility. So you did it yourself in a garage. You worked out of another person's facility. When did you decide, and like what made you say, I need my own spot and I want to open it up? Like, what was your thought process, finding a space, investing, all of that?
It was just, honestly, it started from when I started doing my numbers. When I started at the field, I started at the garage. I started seeing, hey, how everything kind of became a little more professional. People started taking me a little more serious. So I think that was the first part. Is, the reason of phase 1, I went there and I had a 50-50 split with that gym, which kind of was like, oh, all the money I'm making now, I have to give 50% to the gym. But I saw it because it was like, it's an established brand. It has a roof. It has a nice, weight area. So it's kind of gives that more professional environment. But at phase 1, where we ended up saying, my wife with me actually, because she's the other trainer in here who also played collegiate soccer and played at a high level. We started doing, we just blew up. And the space that they were giving us to use, I was like, we can't comfortably fit these 8 to 10 kids in the session anymore. And obviously, I don't want to go back to parks because we already kind of established that, hey, they're at a facility. It just gave a different vibe. And I told her, I was like, look, we've been making X amount like this. What if we look for a space this big with this rent? And, kind of we estimated the cost of everything else, the lights, the sewage, the water, all that other stuff. And I was like, you think we can do it? And she was like, yeah, let's do it. So it came down to it felt right because just how I've grown from a park to a garage to another facility. So the organic growth, I was like, it feels right that this is the next step now. And also we checked our financials saying, no, wait, we just don't want that clout or like that thing that we have a soccer training facility. No, I was like, we got to be smart about this too.
Yeah, exactly. You want to make sure that you're not counting your chickens before they hatch or just overcommitting financially. And then, most small businesses don't last that long. So I love that you took that approach to actually making sure that it was a calculated decision.
Yeah, no, and honestly, I always tell mentors because I always talk to other trainers. I tell them, like, look, at the end of the day, yes, it's nice having a facility, but you got to be built different to kind of know if a light breaks. Like right now, I just installed new lights. That's like a $2,000 job. A mirror broke the other day. That's another. It's like sometimes you have to factor in emergencies in, and like it kind of gets you down because I had a good month and then this happened. So what I tell the trainers is like you just have to make sure you're kind of business savvy and know how to count numbers, because obviously now you are a business side of it, and you have to. How sometimes some people out there you didn't charge in the past, or you charge like $20 for an hour. Now it's $30. And if they really are faithful to you and they respect you, they will respect that change. And honestly, I lost some people when I went to other people. And then I realized maybe that's not the type of clients I want. So those type of things you have to factor in. You're going to, if you charge too cheap and then you go into another place that looks a little more professional, you have to charge more. Some people are like, no. So I always tell trainers, passion is good, but it has to make sense business wise.
Nice. I love that. And you mentioned like mirrors breaking and lights and stuff. Are there any other big unexpected challenges that you faced when opening this up?
When I first opened, yes. So our roof is, it didn't have a net. So when we were doing shooting sessions, any ball will hit, like bounce up or anything like, deflects or anything, could have hit one of the lights on the top. So we opened in June 2019. We didn't get our safety nets till after COVID, till everything was allowed to open up again, because we just couldn't find anyone that would manufacture nets. We had to get someone from Kingman, Arizona, which is I think 2 hours away. And it was just, I was like, what are we gonna do? But I was like, so to kind of keep it short, we couldn't provide all the services that we wanted to because we didn't have the safety nets down. We have the safety nets on the ceiling. So those are some of the challenges. And to be fair, as soon as we got the keys, they're like, hey, you get this only this first month of June free. After that, we want that rent money. So I was like, we got to figure something out quick. So it was exciting to get the key. And as soon as we got it, I was like, oh snap. Now we really got to get our grind on.
But I also love that, you commit to it, and that kind of fuels you. You take the action and then you're like, okay, I'm here. We got to make it successful. And there's a little bit of motivation, a fire lit under your ass to get going.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's the one big challenge, that we weren't allowed to do all the services like finishing. Cause like I said, all the walls are protected. We really couldn't even play 4v4 small sided games also because our walls didn't have the mats. And that didn't get installed after, before COVID. So like I said, it was from that June, July, August of 2019, September and October. It was like, how can we craft what we were kind of doing at phase one, but then obviously with the bigger space that we were given, that we got now.
Sweet. Well, let's transition to training session breakdown. How do you structure private or small group sessions?
First things first, it gets a little corny, but it's always look at the human. Are they ready to work today? How was school? Mom and dad are okay, or whoever they're living with. So I look at the player I'm about to work with or the group, and I kind of feel the energy and the vibe, kind of sense that out. And then from there, obviously depends on what level they play, what are their objectives on the field. The good thing is now with all these recording services with VO, Trace and all that, I can kind of see the kids' games before, and then I bring out an iPad or a laptop. It's like, hey, look, this is where you're doing good. You can do this better. And then I kind of see what plays, or kind of what type of repetitions you're mostly seeing in the games. And I try to mimic the session around there and how efficient they can be. So for a striker, is it a striker that likes to dribble? Okay, can you simplify it a little bit more and keep it to be a killer with 2 to 3 touches? Or if you're going to be dribbling, notice that you're attracting 2 to 3 players. Now, can you finesse a pass to someone else that's open? So it's just kind of mimicking the session into what they usually see. That's for a private. If it's defending, obviously we work on defensive things. I'd like to jump in. That's how they keep me fit. I go 1v1 against these kids. And in group scenarios, honestly, is a little more difficult. We try to set objectives, but our objectives mainly for us is how many touches can we get? Everything's with the ball from the very beginning. We play with a rondo pattern, partner passing, and then we open it up to some passing, some rondo, some group passing, and some little rondos, and then obviously we end with a 4v4.
Nice. I love that.
So not to try to overcomplicate it, try to keep it simple.
Yeah. So I'm right there with you. A couple of the key pillars of like the CanXL method include like ball mastery. You say it as many touches as you can get. That position specific, or at least like football actions focused. So it's as game-like as possible, because of course in a one-on-one session, it's not playing a game, but you try to incorporate things like their positions or certain situations that they might be in. And we also have athleticism as one of the CanXL portions here. So I wanted to touch on that with you, since you have the facility that has weights and you do a little bit more with players. How does that get incorporated into your training sessions as well?
So that it gets incorporated sometimes. So a kid that I can see, it's like a little bit of strength. I don't like to focus. Well, if there's obviously you are providing the service, and some parents are gonna say, no, I want my kid just strength trained today. Even again, sometimes you have to bite your tongue in your opinion. You can still have to, what you feel is right and what the parent wants and what the kid wants, you have to mold it. And I think that becomes a good trainer, because at the end of the day, they see what they see. You're not in their eyes. It can only go so far, and some people are hard-headed. So the way I incorporate mostly my strength session actually as an activation, something that some ball, hey, let's hit the ball against the wall, blah, blah, get a good sweat for a good 10 minutes. And then probably like a 10 to 15 minute circuit that's, inverted rows, something that's body weight. Depends on the kid too, if the kid, does they have some prior strength training or they're brand new? Most likely, the culture in Vegas, most kids do not have a background in strength training. So then you got to teach them how to lift, how to move. You put a kid in, do like some TRX curls and they're bringing their elbows into to their ribs, and that turns into a row instead of an actual curl. So there's all these little things, depends on where the kid's at with the strength training. But I like to incorporate some mostly as an activation.
Nice. Yeah, I agree with that. We do, as a part of our system, athletic activation, exactly same thing. But how do you approach that differently when it comes to maybe a youth player versus a collegiate level player?
Yeah, so for college soccer, for collegiate, you got to kind of know that you have a short time with them. Back when I was playing at UNLV, our month was June and July. We had a long break. What I've known now is kids are going back earlier now with their captain's practices. So some kids actually, after they end mid-May, their school, they probably use those first 2 weeks to kind of vacation. Then you have a full month of June with them, and then maybe that first week of July. But a lot of kids are now, they end up leaving early. The only kids that really stay a little bit longer are the kids that play maybe D3, D2. They have a little bit longer break, but the D1 athletes usually end up leaving by the first week or second week of July. So the way I treat them is a preseason before the preseason. How we to make sure that we manage the loads, because kids at a young age, and college coaches too, they like to throw fitness out there. I need to run. And I kind of like to tell the kids, like, you do realize if I murder you every day here, like you want me to, you're going to go into captain's practices. Your captain there's no coaches out there. So your captain is going to emphasize fitness as well. And the first 2 to 3 weeks of that little preseason you have with your actual coaches before your season, they're going to emphasize fitness as well. So you're going to tell me you want to do almost 2.5 months, 2.5 months of preseason of just running? Where's the playing? So what I do, and the kids kind of see it now, we train Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Monday's a heavier day. We do have in the gym, but obviously we do some ball work. Wednesday's just all passing. Can we be clean with the ball? Hard passes, fast passes, keeping the ball on the ground. And then Wednesdays, we open it up to some playing, small-sided games, 7v7, 8v8, and then with some fitness at the end. So for them, it's like, how can I maximize them without overloading them and overtraining them? And
Gotcha.
Obviously with the youth kids, it's you got to be on their schedule. There's different levels. So we take a high school athlete that's also playing high school soccer. They're playing 2 high school games in a given week. They're playing, and let's say it's at a high competitive, which is MLS next or ECNL level. They're playing also 2 ECNL games in that same weekend. And they have club practice, and then they also have high school practice. So that's already 7 to 8 things out of the week. So how do they fit a private session with you? And then to say that is to keep it simple and just keep them clean on the things that you think that they need to improve on, or they also believe. From watching film, it's like, hey, you're doing good, there's good effort, but your first touch on your right side, receiving the ball and the move is popping up a lot. Let's work on that. So during those times, I like to keep it very simple and just work on their deficiencies. Don't like to emphasize so much fitness. It's just like, hey, let's pop 1 hour, just straight up sharp ball work.
Amazing. Yeah, I love that. Just the focus on like periodization, being aware of everything going on in their calendar, and promoting injury prevention and progressive overload, and just being mindful of their long-term growth as a player, and being able to send them off back to wherever they came from, whether it's, sending them off to preseason or to their club team with the right level of fitness, having them primed and ready to go.
Yeah, absolutely. It's crazy how, especially with all this new technology that you can kind of like see with GPS vests, heart rate monitors. You can kind of say, hey, this kid, maybe I need to push him a little harder, or, we need to take it back a scale for this kid. But yeah, that's basically how we manage. It's putting yourself in those kids' shoes in their schedules, because it's not about you. It's about making sure that you're providing the best professional service to them, making sure with your, obviously, that sensations that sometimes you can learn in books, and feeling those kids out. Ooh, today he's actually, I see a little bit of half effort, or dang, I got to scale it back a little bit. This kid's actually fatiguing out today too soon.
Exactly. And then that's when you're using your coaching experience to tweak things on the fly.
I don't know how to describe it. I feel it's that human aspect you have to be. And I think there's no book, there's no anything I can really teach that. You just have to sense it. And yeah, it does come sometimes through experience. That's why I say I always start the session with feeling out the kid. And I've had kids like, hey, how's today? How's everything? And I've had kids absolutely break down on me. And I was like, oh, dang, today you got to rough them with your parents, or at school they failed the test. You got to look at all these other psychological things that these kids and stresses that they're going through throughout the day. I've had kids that come straight after school and they look fried, they look tired. I was like, yeah, this is prime nap time for you guys. If you weren't coming to train with me, you'll probably get home and just knock out. So yeah, I always say put yourself in your athlete's shoes, see their schedule, and then see, okay, this is what I can squeeze out of them today without overdoing it.
Got you. I love that you have this like the sixth sense, the intuition to check in on how they're doing and put yourself, the empathy. And empathy is huge when it comes to being a coach or a leader. So I love that. We're going to move on to a bit about business. So how do you currently market yourself or grow your client base?
When I first started training, obviously, like I said, social media wasn't that big in that type of way. Clips were 15 seconds long on Instagram. Word of mouth. What I like to think of is when I train a kid or a group, I need to make sure that these kids are having the best experience, and I want them talking after the session in the car with their parents or texting with their friends. Had a great time with Julian at PSA. So my first tip on marketing is treat every kid that they can bring 3 new clients in. And that's how I kind of brought it in. I was like, I'm gonna make sure that this kid develops the best way so they can bring in more people. I don't know if it sounds selfish. I tell kids all the time, though, to be fair, I do put it out there. I was like, I need you to do good so you make me look good. And it makes my business do good. So that's the way I would do it. Obviously now, you have to analyze also who you're the majority of your, clientele is. The parents are the ones paying, not the kids. Back in the day, and I'm speaking for Vegas, parents will have a little bit more camaraderie and then they'll talk and, a little more of friendships. I think that's dying down a little bit in Vegas. Parents are a little bit more, what can I do to get my kid ahead instead of, I want my kid's team to do well. So that's created a culture where parents are now not talking too much, not talking as much together, and everyone kind of does their own thing. They're on their phones. Going now to our next transition, adapting was a big thing. Adapting on the business side, we have to adapt now to the social media world where we have to promote more. We have to put stories. We have to put posts. And what's the new thing? Reels right now. Just upload reels. So that's how we're marketing right now. It's just on Instagram, just kind of show little clips that basically daily clips that what we see at PSA. That's how I'm marketing myself. But the first way I started was word of mouth, but I would like to say that word of mouth is kind of slowing down a little bit, and it's more of now you have to put a flashy video, which I'm not a fan of, but it's a new generation of parents that are being brought up with that new technology, and then they're on their phones. And how the soccer culture is changing off the field with parents.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think those are some great tips. I think you're doing a good job understanding the dynamic between gathering referrals, word of mouth, connecting with parents where they're at. And I think it's a win-win if you tell a player, hey, if you look good, you make me look good. And there's a bit of that player-trainer partnership going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I absolutely agree that referrals are one of, if not the top way to grow your business, especially in the beginning. And that also, at the end of the day, they're not going to be referring you if you don't have a quality product. So you need to be adding a lot of value as a coach, as a trainer, having leadership, having a good structure or system, or at least, being able to not just show up there and throw down some cones and run them through some basic drills. I like to tell people that if you can show to a parent that you have some level of progression, or that they can see in their player that they, you took them from here to there, you've developed some skill, those types of like measurable areas of success are really important to not just to please parents, but also for player motivation as well. As you're teaching them skills and they're actually seeing the changes in themselves, they'll be a lot more likely to, be a promoter.
Yeah, absolutely. One funny way I think that we created kind of a culture in here is that we talk a lot of trash. The good thing is building community. It's also, and this is like another kind of going sidetracked, and we try to build hopefully this feels like a second home to some kids. We want this to be a we understand what you do with the club, but when you come here, we're not your coach. You don't have to sometimes feel that stress. If you do bad, you're going to be benched. You're going to be, limited time. And here, the only thing I demand from you is effort, and that you're generally trying to, get better. Mistakes are welcome. We're here to fix them. But the one thing that can never be negotiated, and if you've heard this enough, you can't negotiate effort. You have to work here, and I always tell parents, you're wasting, first of all, your parents' time, money, you're wasting your time, you're wasting my time, and that's where we transition, where I think sometimes as trainers, what do we want? We want everyone training with us, We've got to a point where now basically we're almost In the mornings, we have our academy. So it's like a homeschooling training program. And then in the evenings, it's almost all just private based. So it's one-on-one small groups, teams that only want their team training in here. So that's the way we transition. We're actually very selective of who we train, because we want to make sure, our work is shown. We want to enjoy training the kids too. We don't want people thinking this is a daycare or just a place like drop your kid off. And some parents will pay whatever, but it's like, that's not what we're about. We want the kids to come, train, have a good time. It's beneficial, it's efficient, and then we'll see you for the next one.
I love that. All that was fire, and I'm definitely clipping that out. We're coming up on time here, so I'm going to try a little something new. I've got a rapid fire question, got some quick hitters, and we'll see if you can answer them relatively quickly.
Okay.
All right, let's get into it. What's a go-to drill that always delivers?
Wall touches, any type. I like to say juggling on the ground, 2 touches, 1 touch, just smacking the ball into the ground, because then you can go, so turn, work different things, but the wall is the best teacher for me.
Love that. What's your favorite piece of equipment in your facility other than the wall?
Well, ball, obviously. For me, it's going to sound funny. It's a size 1 soccer ball. Yeah, pinging that around, or then just juggling, calling someone out, let's play 2 touch, or juggling, popping in the air and bringing it down. How many touches with a thigh, with the shoulders. Size 1 for me is another important tool. Or you can even, if you don't have size 1, a tennis ball. So a small ball, a ball size down, or a smaller tennis ball that you can use. So,
I love that. I always have a mini ball with my sessions too. What's one lesson you've learned from your playing career that's shaped how you coach today?
it's just hard work. It's hard work. Going into the business, it's 24/7 too. You got to make sure everything's paid, everything's right. As an athlete too, what do? You make sure you're eating, you're hydrating, you're doing the little small things so you get an edge. As a business side too, goes back, are you marketing well? Are you looking professional? Do you look the part? Those are things. So are you feeding the business so it does well? See you, girl. It does good as well.
Love that. There we go. You survived the rapid fire. But when we wrap up here, I actually have a question I like to ask every trainer. We're putting up a poll on social media for it, but the question is this: is team training enough to develop as a player?
No. And you can see at the highest level, even professionals are seeking out for outside help now. And it goes back to, if we look at the highest level, which is like kind of like the standard that everyone wants to like be at. So why not mimic that? Pro players are playing a lot now, right? What is it? 3 game? It's every 3 days a game. So in team training sessions, there's not really much for improvement. You're either recovering, a light practice, and then tactics. Same for club soccer here. And I'm based off Las Vegas. There's some kids that, teams are now training. Where I train, it was 3 times a week. Now it's 4 times a week. And then they have a game, and then they have 2 games, and then they have 2 games on weekends. So you need that outside help to supplement sometimes where you're not getting team training, because coaches are now becoming more tactical aware. So they're not going to waste as much time as doing stuff to make you better. But how can I make the team better? How can I make the team efficient? And for that to happen, you have to seek out that extra help. And we build a good relationship where now there's actually coaches recommending their players to us. So team training is not enough now. You need that extra training. And to be fair, one of my, and I forgot the components. One of the components I think for player development is self-development. I'm a big believer in, I can teach you my ABCs, but I want you to kind of take my ABCs and then modify them to your ABCs. That's how I grew up with coming up with all these wall drills and all this stuff. It's like me just goofing off and, hey, I like this touch, I like this drill. And at the same time, also, we have the YouTube, we have so many resources. There's no excuse for players not to get better. I tell parents, I tell kids, you don't have to come here to get better. I teach you the tools necessary to get better. Then you come back and then we teach you more. I want you guys to be self-efficient, because I think self-development is a big part. And that just goes back to like team training answering. Is it for private trainers? No, but self-development is a big part of kids going out and just maybe just kicking the ball into the wall. Hey, dang, I didn't know I can control my left like this. So yeah, that's one of my things of why team training. Now you have to go out and do stuff by yourself with a trainer, with your friends. There's so many ways you can go at it. There's resources, like I said, the internet, apps. So I would like to say that there's no more excuses.
Absolutely. Mic drop moment. Fully agree with you on all aspects there. And we'll wrap it up with that. I really appreciate all of your tips, tactics, and tricks. You've actually given a lot of value about business and training as well. I really appreciate, following your journey and watching where you're taking your academy. And if you ever show up in the Toronto area, hit me up, dude.
Yeah. I trained a team from Toronto actually not too long ago. I think 2 weeks ago. They trained with me before a tournament here, and they actually ended up winning the whole thing. I'm definitely gonna take you up for that.
Yeah, I'd love to head back to Vegas too sometime. There's a couple of restaurants that I missed.
And you have to check out the facility when you're in town.
Heck yeah. Sounds good to me. Well, Julian, thank you so much for your time. We'll see you
Thank
later.
you for having me. I'll see you later, dude. Take care.